And welcome to Around the Ozark Spotlight. Each week, we uncover the stories behind the people who live and work here in Southwest Missouri. Those individuals with entrepreneurial spirit who work to develop the lives of others or even put pen to paper to write books and stories about the history of the Ozarks and its people. I'm Scott Meier. Today, we're going to explore the world of radio talent and production with Chris Blaski, who is the brand manager of KOMG 1051 The Bull right here at Midwest Family. Hello, Chris.
How you doing?
Although you go by Blaski, don't you?
Yes, I do, typically.
Okay. Well, and that's is this a real name? Is this a radio name?
No, it's actually my real last name. It's been a name that I've been called since high school, through college, through the military. I have only ever been Blaski for the longest time. So when somebody calls me by my first name, I think it's either one of two people. It's either my mother that's calling for me, and typically I'm in trouble, or it's my wife calling me, which means I'm also probably in trouble. Of some
Typically
kind.
in trouble. That's right.
Everybody else calls me Blaski.
That's right. Well, good, Blaski. Welcome. Now we hadn't really met before. I would guess you know my history there, but maybe you don't. But anyway,
I do actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good. So we don't have to go into any of that now. But this is about you. We want people to know who you are. 1051 The Bull, which means country, and you must have a background in country music.
I got a little bit of a background in just about all types of music. So I've been doing radio now for, well, off and on about 16 years. So I got into it when I was probably in my early 20s. Started off doing pop radio. I've done rock. I've done classic rock. I've done country a little bit. So this is the first time that I've been full time on the country side. So I've dabbled in a lot of different genres, but this is the first time fully embracing the world of country music.
Well, let's give people a little background. Who is Chris Blaski? Where are you from?
Well, I'm originally from Leavenworth, Kansas, so just right outside of Kansas City. And if Leavenworth sounds familiar to anybody, it's because we're the prison city. So we've got all the major prisons and all that jazz, and that's what we're known for mostly. And then we've got our military post there. So grew up there till I was about 18, and then kind of moved back a time or two. And but I got into radio back in, like I said, I was 24, so that would have been early mid 2000s.
Okay.
And just kind of a chance happening. Went to college at Emporia State University on my first stint at college. And,
where's that?
It's in Emporia, Kansas. Is about I'd say about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours north of Wichita. So it's
we're talking about flat. We're talking about flatland, Kansas, right?
Super flat land, like as far as your eyes could see.
Really
so
fly
flat
over
in Kansas. Oh my God,
right.
It is so flat in Kansas. You can actually see the Rocky Mountains for 7 hours before you'll even actually get to the Rocky Mountains. That's how flat it is. So it's nice when I come down here and I'm like, oh, sure. Hills and trees. We don't got those in Kansas. But,
well,
yeah, no, I went down to Emporia, and like I said, I went to college there for a little bit, and then just had a chance opportunity to get involved with one of their local radio stations there. And man, the rest is kind of history.
So Emporius, they were the Emporius what? What was
they were the Emporia State Hornets. And
the Hornets, okay.
The Hornets. Right. Now, as much as I will always have a spot in my heart for Emporia, it's where I got my start. It's where I met my wife. Sure. And I might catch some flack for this, they have the corniest mascot ever. I love the school. I love Emporia, but they've got their Hornet is called Corky, and it's nothing fierce by any means. And I used to just laugh all the time that it was just this cartoon character, but yeah, they're the Hornets.
Well, we all had to go somewhere, and by golly, that's where you went. So you met your wife from there. What did people do in Emporia? What's the primary? What did her folks do? Why is she there?
Well, her mother was a teacher. Both her parents are now retired, but her mother was a teacher, and her father was one of the battalion chiefs at the fire department out of Emporia. So Emporia, again, it's kind of got three different industries that kind of keep it alive. There's Tyson has a factory there. Dolly Madison has a factory there. And then they also have Emporia State University, which is a major teaching college. Okay. So it was, I think at one time it was like the Kansas Teachers College, and then they changed it to Emporia State University. So those are the three main things that they're known for, at least industry-wise, and what really kind of keeps that town afloat. But on top of the fact that the people there are just incredible on top of that. So I would say they're known for those three things, plus the hospitality in that town is one of those. I've never been to a place quite like it.
They're just really nice people. Is that?
Oh, they're incredible. everybody is very community minded over there. And like I
Hmm.
said, it's like my hometown's technically Leavenworth, Kansas, but I tell people my hometown's really Emporia. I've got more of
Okay.
a my heart's more there than any place else.
Chris, someone your age, typically, when folks ask me about when I got into radio, which really dates back to the very late '60s, early '70s, I had a chance to really go through the golden age of the business. I mean, it was a booming business then. It was very similar to digital today, or even digital really 15 years ago when it was just starting out at being something.
Right.
And a lot of fun, a lot of people my age, a lot of us that got into the industry, grew up with it as kids and couldn't wait to be on the other side of a microphone and entertaining people. Come the 2000s, the business really changed. So for you to decide at that age you wanted to be in broadcasting, tell us a little bit about that, because a lot of people were going another direction.
To me, growing up, there was a radio DJ in Kansas City that I absolutely fell in love with. He was a DJ I probably should not have been listening to at my age, but but my dad would listen to it in the mornings and then turn down at the parts we weren't supposed to hear. But there's a DJ in Kansas City named Johnny Dare, and I
Yep.
remember
Oh, I'm
listening.
familiar with Johnny. Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I listened to Johnny Dare literally since the day he started in radio back in like 92, 93, something like that. He just something about him and the way that he held Kansas City in the palm of his hand, in the
Hmm.
sense that he cared about Kansas City. He knew what was going around town about anything and everything. And he got to this point where all these charities were coming to him for help because he just knew how to make things happen. And to me, there was just something really cool and inspiring about that because he was just talking to everybody like anybody and everybody like they were friends. He could have
Hmm.
had the entire lineup of Metallica in his studio and he was talking to each one of these guys, even if he just met them, talking to them like they had been old friends, old buddies. He just knew how to click with people. And something about that was just really fascinating to me. And I always like listening to the voiceover guys in the movies, and I would run around my house doing the same thing as a kid. And so to me, it was just kind of like I always felt comfortable behind a microphone, oddly
Hmm.
enough, but not so much in front of a camera, which this situation's a little weird for me.
Sure.
But being in front, just to me, it was I saw what Johnny was doing and I wanted to be a part of that in some capacity. And so I just found any avenue I could to get into broadcasting. And actually, I started off DJing bars and weddings and parties
Hmm.
just to kind of get that, how to work a crowd, how to deliver behind a microphone until I eventually got an opportunity to get into radio itself. But it was just about radio's always there. I love music. I'm a big
Hmm.
fan of just about any genre of music there was. So it just kind of brought a lot of different interests together all under one roof. And I could not imagine being someplace else.
I'd like to have been a fly on the wall when your wife to be told her parents that you worked in radio. What did they think?
My wife actually had no idea who I was when we first met, which was kind of funny because I always say Emporia is a small enough town, everybody knows everybody. So to say
Hmm.
that I was famous in Emporia, I was like, yeah, well, so is your local librarian. This is like everybody in Emporia is famous. But something about the fact she's like she had no idea who I was. And a lot of her friends were like, oh, you don't know? That's the guy from the radio station. Wife
Hmm.
didn't have a clue. And for something about that to me, I was like, well, I kind of want to talk to you more now because I just get to be me. Everybody expected, I guess, a personality out of me, but I just
Sure.
got a chance to talk to her. So she had no idea I was in radio. Her parents had no idea I was in radio, and they just thought it was the neatest job a person could have. So
Hmm.
they were actually really cool with the idea of me being a DJ and been really incredibly supportive over the years.
So, what'd you major in college?
Digital media originally. So I got into digital media just because I saw that's where really everything was going, including
Hmm.
radio. I mean, we're at the point now where we've got our own videos and we've got podcasts like this and digital elements galore out there. And so I decided you don't really get a degree in broadcasting. I mean, you can, but those options weren't around a lot where I was at.
Hmm.
And I kind of felt like, well, I've already done broadcasting. So why don't I go to school to learn more of the digital media side of things? So I went back to college to finish up back in, 2000 and I want to say 13,
Okay.
and then ended up finishing up my degree in 2018. And so now I've got digital media on top of a few other things.
So you went immediately out of high school into broadcast.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, not immediately. It was a few years, but I kind of dibbled around in a few different things until I finally broke in. Like I said, I'm 40 now, so that would have been when I was 24 is when
Hmm.
I finally got in. I went to Emporia State, like I said, for about a year. Didn't really work out. Wasn't in that mindset to want to go to college and all that jazz. I wanted to go have fun and freedom, and I did that for a few years.
Sure.
Enlisted in the Kansas Air National Guard, and that kind of afforded me an opportunity to, well, I could move back to Emporia because I
Okay.
had been there for a couple years, left, was in my hometown for a little while, enlisted in the Air Force, went there, and then I went back to Emporia after basic and all that. And like I said, that's where I really got an opportunity to get into broadcasting about that point. So,
I was not. Well, thank you for your service. Now, I've
oh,
got my oldest daughter's partner in life so far was a Marine, and he likes to
oh
call the
yeah,
Air Force. He likes to call the Air Force the chair force, but that's his words. That's not
yeah,
mine. He
yeah.
he said you guys got everything the best. You got the best quarters to sleep in, the best food to eat. And he said all he got to do was fly around in airplanes with you guys. So, and then
Yeah,
and you would
well,
and you'd push him out of perfectly good airplanes. So,
well, that's what they signed up for. No, we always joke. I hear that all the time that everybody says, "Oh, you're the chair force" and such. And what I always find funny is everybody's quick to give us grief until they come back from their deployment and they're on one of our bases and they see that they have all of these amenities. Now all of a sudden, man, that we're their best friends. This is the best base they've ever been. So yeah, we're the chair force until you're ready for that chair. Then all of a
uh,
sudden we're your best friends. So
I love it. I love it. Now we get the gambit that actually gets a chance to hear this program because it airs on the radio stations, all four of them on Sunday. But
yeah,
also, it lives out in a digital world. But what would you tell somebody? Because it's an interesting story. You graduated high school. You had an interest in the business. But you didn't. Well, you went to college, probably played around a little bit more than you needed to, and believe me, we all did
yeah.
that. So don't. That's. I'm not beating you on that one. Uh, but you turned to the service. Was that to kind of like pull things together for you, or was that just a stage of your life where you felt that you know what, I could always do maybe the other thing later. I got to do this for me now.
It was kind of really a combination of a few things. Growing up in a military town, I had been around military people my entire life. Fort Leavenworth, I think, has more military officers than any other base outside of Washington, D.C. I could
Hmm.
be wrong on that, but that was one thing I've always heard growing up. And I was a wrestler as a kid and all the way up through my about early mid 20s. And I'd always had military coaches because our team was part of Fort Leavenworth. My parents ran the team as civilians, which allowed me and my younger brother to be the only two civilian kids on the team. All the other kids, all their parents were military. So again, I mean, literally surrounded by them my entire life, and
Hmm.
was raised in a house that, regardless of how you may feel about one situation or another, you always showed your respect to the military for all that they do. And so I had a lot of great inspirations and a lot of great individuals, from enlisted people to officers, full board colonels, the whole shebang, all tell me that if I was going to enlist, go into the Air Force. That was the way to go.
Hmm.
Now, these were all Army people that would tell me go Air Force, which I thought
Okay.
you're
Yeah.
recruiting for the wrong team. I thought,
Right.
go Army all the way, but
Sure.
they just said it's like if that's what you're going to do, go do that. So that's always kind of sat in my head for a while. And
Hmm.
then when I was about 20, 21, I, kind of got to the point where I was like, I want to go do something a little bit more with my life. I've had my fun. I've been in, as I said, an idiot teenager, idiot adult
Hmm.
for those first few years out of college or out of high school, and just decided it was time to go do something different. And I talked to a couple of different Air Force recruiters, and nothing really just kind of gelled with me. And then I came across one out of the Kansas Air National Guard, which wasn't anything I considered. I thought active duty the entire time. Came across this National Guard recruiter, and he was just hands down probably one of the most honest, straightforward people I met.
Hmm.
And so to me, I felt good about this. I could go do the Air Force. My plan was do the Air Force, go back to college, see where it goes. After a few years, if I just really wasn't feeling that civilian life, really wasn't feeling college, radio wasn't going where I wanted it to go, or I hadn't quite cracked that nut yet, I'd
Sure.
go active duty and see what happens. So luckily for me, after just being in the service for a couple of years, like I said, I managed to get into radio, and that pretty much solidified that I'd do my 6-year term with the military. I deployed once. Came back home and then rat out the rest of my contract and decided, all right, let's just go ahead and dive headfirst into all things here in radio and see if I can really make a go of it.
We'll be back in a moment with more on Around the Ozarks Spotlight. I'm your host, Scott Meier, back right after these messages.
Hey, everybody, it's Ethan and Sarah Forhetz from your favorite podcast, Around the Ozarks in 5. I'm sure you've been wondering, how can I get even more amazing stories, events, and witty banter to start my day?
Well, look no further. Here we are. Sign up for our daily newsletter. You'll have what's going on around the Ozarks right at your fingertips each weekday morning.
Yeah, just go to aroundtheozarks.com, click on the newsletter tab to sign up.
Thanks for listening to Around the Ozarks in 5. We hope to see you in your inbox soon.
Welcome back to the second half of today's Around the Ozarks Spotlight. I'm Scott Meier, your host. With me is Chris Blaski, otherwise known as Blaski, who's the we used to call you guys program directors. Now I got to get this right. You're called a brand manager.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm sure, pretty much a lot of the same things, maybe some more. But and we can talk about that in a minute. But Chris is brand manager for KOMG 105.1 The Bull, part of the Midwest Family Group in Springfield. And we were getting to know Chris a little bit more in the first half, but in the second half here, let's talk a little bit about broadcasting in general. So now it's you got in 2005, 2006 when things began to change a little bit. Certainly changed from the 80s and the mid 90s in the broadcasting business. But now it's 2025, and in 2025 it's a completely different business. If you were invited to go over to MSU, downtown or Evangel or any one of the schools, Drury, and talk about the why. Why should somebody who's in school getting a degree in whatever want to go into the broadcasting business?
I really think because there's this misconception that somehow radio is this dinosaur archaic thing that nobody listens to anymore. And that's not true in any capacity. I mean, you get into your car and your radio's playing whether you realize it or not. There's statistics galore that tells people it's like all these people are getting all of this information from their radio, whether they realize it or not. To me, radio is one of those things. It is the easiest way, in my opinion, to connect with your community, to connect with people around you. And that was, again, part of the reason why I wanted to get into this was that connection to wherever it is that wherever I lived, wherever the case may be. People want to get into what I say, and anybody wants to get into broadcast is understand that radio is an ever evolving entity. It's this thing that, like you said, it's nowhere near it was. And even for me, I mean, I've been doing this now, like I said, off and on for about 16 years, and it's so much different now than it was 16 years ago, and even more so than it was 20 years ago, 25 years ago. It's an ever-evolving thing, so it's not dying out by any stretch of the imagination. It's actually reaching itself into more avenues than ever before. So I tell people that want to get into broadcasting is don't shy away from it. Dive into it. Any opportunity you can to get to behind that microphone and start getting, the reps or however you want to put it, to start doing those things, but also make yourself as diversified as possible to learn so many different avenues, because that is what has changed a lot in radio. Is it used to be, the talent was the talent. You came in and you did your show and you took care of the music and then that was it. But now we're at a point where I'm on middays on the Bull from 10 to 2. Most people don't realize that I'm also the program director and the brand manager. They also may not realize that I'm actually one of the video producers for Around the Ozarks. At this point, I'm pretty much the only video producer for Around the Ozarks. So it's so there's a few different hats that I've had to kind of wear in my current job, and that's been that way through radio through most of my career. Is that nobody does just one thing anymore. Everybody learns a few different things. So I would say learn the skills behind the microphone, but don't be afraid to adapt and learn new things, because trust me, the more you turn yourself into that kind of Swiss Army knife, the longer your career is going to last, the more opportunities you're going to have for yourself. So make sure that you look for every opportunity you can. And by all means, don't shy away from anything. Always say yes to stuff. It always works out.
It intrigues me, and it really warms my heart to hear you talk about the part of community that comes from being a broadcaster. As corny as it sounds, when you tell people that sometimes, that's one of the reasons I got into the business. When people ask me why'd you ever do it, I said it was always a way to connect with the community. And
Absolutely.
when you would do things, for instance, when I went to New York. And we did a radiothon on our radio station in New York, and I was teased. You're a guy from the hick area of Minneapolis, Minnesota. What do you know about a big city like New York? It's not the same community. It's 17 million people. I mean, what are you thinking? And we did a radiothon, a 24-hour radiothon, and generated $1.4 million. And now granted, it's New York, right? So of course you could do the same thing in a Springfield and generate $25,000, and it's a great day. But no one, even folks on my staff, could believe that we had that kind of power. And I said, well, of course we have that kind of power. The connection. It's all about the connection with the folks. Absolutely. And if you tell a great story, you know what? They'll put the money on the table.
Yeah, and radio's free. That's the thing. Radio's free. It's everywhere. You can turn it on. You've got it on your phone. You have it in your car. You have it at your office. I mean, it's just like radio is just one of those things. It's always there. And more often than not, I think you find radio people more involved in what's going on in the community than sometimes television people do. For whatever reason that may be, I don't know. But at least that's from my perspective. That's what it's always kind of seemed like. And again, it's like to me, the Ozarks are kind of a weird home away from home for me, because I vacationed down here my entire childhood. My parents did not go anywhere else on vacation ever. We always went down to the same campground in Branson. We went to the same lake every summer. And so the Ozarks to me was it. When I moved down here, I told my wife when we came down here about 6 years ago that it was like going home in a weird way. And so I've kind of, even though I'm still learning different things about the Ozarks, things that I never knew before, learning more about the Springfield area that I didn't know before. I do feel like I'm kind of, I'm home, being part of that home community again. And, my wife and I, we talked about making a life here on a permanent basis. We came down here as kind of a trial. We're both from Kansas. We wanted something new and different. And she had finished, she's a veterinarian and she had finished her vet degree. So we were going to go start anew someplace else. The Ozarks just kind of seemed like a good fit. And so, now that we're here, it's wanting to make sure that while we're here, we are a part of the community. There's so many great things about Springfield. There's so many great things about the Ozarks. And I do think at times that sometimes this area gets a bad rap, and just be able to be like, we're incredible people too. And there's incredible things going on, and other people need to know about it. And, it's just great to be able to say that I'm a part of facilitating that each and every day.
You're listening to and seeing Chris Blaski, who's my guest today. Chris is new to the area. He's the I got to get this right because I never used this before. So
hey, I
the
get
brand manager. He's
the
the brand manager for KOMG 105.1 The Bull in the Midwest family of stations that we have here in Springfield. When you talk about radio being there when you least expect it, when you grow up in an area like you did, the flatlands of Kansas, and I'm sure you've seen your share of tornadoes and tornadic weather. First thing you reach for is radio. I mean, the TV stations can do what they can do. More often than not, if you're down in the cellar, you don't have a television down there.
Right.
Cell phones are great until a couple of towers get blown over, and then they don't work so well. But I'm proud to be in an industry where still in the hidey hole that my wife and I have here in Springfield, we keep a wind-up radio, one that you can charge, if you have to. Because that's the first place we go. And whether you're listening to one of the radio stations or you're listening to the National Weather Service, it's still on the radio.
Absolutely. When I worked in Manhattan, Kansas, I worked for a radio station up there to where we were doing live weather coverage anytime there was any kind of severe weather. So, most of the time that was usually thunderstorms, tornadoes, things of that nature, an occasional snowstorm or blizzard. But we were in the studio the entire time, taking care of every county in our coverage area. We were there, we were covering it. And even if, there was a couple of scary times where they're tracking the tornado and we're looking at our own maps going, if this is real, this is headed right for us.
Mhm,
Now,
mhm.
what do? Do we
Sure.
stay? Do we ride it out? Do we push so we're in that thick of it because again, just like you said, the television goes out, the internet doesn't work. Everybody's on their cell phone trying to get information, try to see what's going on. So now if the
Mhm.
towers are working, they're bogged down. The one thing that doesn't get stressed out based off how many people are using it is the radio airwaves. And yeah,
Yeah.
just like you, my wife and I, we have an actual radio in our storm shelter in our house for that very
Mhm.
reason. We've been through a couple of tours, especially this past spring.
Sure.
We've had a couple of scary situations where we're trying to stream what's happening and I can't get it where I'm, in my hole in my house, but my
Mhm.
radio's still working. So yeah, radio's impact is still, I think, in my opinion, still very significant across the board.
Well, here we sit in the dead of winter. You've got something else coming up on the bowl soon enough that'll make people pretty excited about spring weather. Can you tell us a little bit about your Cardinal coverage?
Oh yeah, we have St. Louis Cardinals coming up here on the Bowl like we do every year. We're going to have every single game in its entirety all throughout the entire 2025 season, and we're also going to have a handful of the preseason games as well. We're going to run the preseason games during the weekends. So that's going to start here on February 22nd, and then
Thank
coming up here
God.
on March 27th. I mean, it's right
Right.
around the corner. I feel like we're going to go Super Bowl this weekend. We're going to blink. St. Louis Cardinals are going to start, and then the home opener itself is coming up here on March 27th. Like I said, we're going to have the entire coverage of every single game all throughout the entire 2025 years. And fingers crossed, we're going to have some playoff games coming up here in October as well that we're going to have right here on the Bowl.
Now, Blaski, since you're the artist there, I would assume when you interviewed for that position, you were asked what it's going to look like in a year, or even 3 years from now. What's it going to look like? What plans have you got for the bowl?
What I want for the Bull to do is, I mean, to me, I think the Bull we have an advantage in the sense that all four of our talents are all right here in the Springfield area.
Hmm.
And so we're part of that community every day. And so we want to take the opportunity here in 2025, 26, 27, 28, just going forward, is to really make sure that the Bull is present in our community, being a part of everything, to be a part of getting the word out on about some of the incredible events that are happening here in town, about having an opportunity to, again, showcase some of the great things about the Ozarks, about Springfield. And at the same time, making sure that our listeners have an opportunity to go out there and see all of their favorite artists as often as we can possibly send them. We just want to make the Bull, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel by any stretch of the imagination. The Bull is an incredible station. And again, I was a little hesitant because, again, I don't have at least on air wise, country has
Hmm.
been something that I have dibbled in, filled in on, but never quite been immersed in it in such a level. And
Sure.
so this year, I just really wanted to take the Bull and just really, again, get it out there in the community, make it as strong as it possibly can to continue to do all the things that it's been doing these past few years. And again, even more so to where when you go out and things are happening here in the community, the Bull's going to be right there letting you know about it. The Bull's going to be right there with you as part of it. And making sure everybody knows that, Springfield's an incredible place. And we also have some of the best music you're going to be able to find, hands down.
No, it's great to hear you say that because living here now for almost 9 years, I'm amazed at some of the folks that I run into that'll say there's just nothing to do. And I said, God, take a step back. There's
Right.
everything to do. I mean, we even have Major League Baseball right here in Springfield. I mean, you don't.
Yeah.
How many places give you a chance to do that?
Right.
So, I mean, there's so many things, and like you said, spending all the time down around the Branson area, you've got literally anything in the entertainment business you may want to see 40 minutes from here.
Yeah, absolutely. Like again, the Springfield is just, I mean, it's diverse in the sense of what you can go out and do, what there is to keep yourself entertained, to have a good time, the people that are here in the community, the things that they're doing to help out the community. Again, we have, a major league, an affiliate to a major league team right here in our backyard with the Springfield
Mhm.
Cardinals, an incredible team that had an incredible season this past year. And to be able to have that direct connection to the St. Louis Cardinals is something not a lot of towns get. Like I said, I grew up in Leavenworth, and we had, around that area, Kansas City Royals. That's the team, but they weren't so great for a while, and so you had to drive about 30 minutes down the road to go to the AAA team that we had, the T-Bones, before they were sold.
Sure.
And people love to go to those. We have that in our backyard, and you don't have to make that 30-minute drive down the road. They're right there at Hammons Field. And like I said, so many great things to do here in town. Anybody says there's nothing to do in Springfield, I was like, you're not looking. You honestly aren't looking. There's so many great things.
On the radio, it's 105.1. Where is it online? How can they find you online?
They can find us at thebull1051.com. You can also download the Bull app wherever you get your apps. It's absolutely free, and you can stream us right there as well. So anytime you're outside of the listening area, just take that app with you, and you can stream the Bull right there in real time.
I want to thank my guest, Chris Blaski, today for being here on Around the Ozarks Spotlight. Also, my producers, Taylor Worley and Jay Stevens, and all of you for joining us. If you happen to miss all or part of today's conversation, you can find ATO Spotlight on the AroundTheOzarks.com website or the ATO app, found in either the Apple apps or Android app stores. There you'll find today's program as well as all of this past year's programs. I'm Scott Meier. Remember, every day is a gift, the best present you can ever receive. Have a great day.